On today's panel, Barry Markson, KTAR legal analyst. Barry, nice to have you back, my friend.
Great to be here, boys.
We've got Gale Bass, television and radio personality. Gale.
And movies. Remember, I
And
had a cameo in a
movies.
movie.
I know. Politics, movies.
Yeah, it was a black job.
She's got the black job tonight. She always likes to say. And we also have Karrin Taylor Robson, gubernatorial candidate 2022. Do you go by KTR? Do people call you that, or is that like because Bruce
that's
said,
cool.
Bruce said you don't have the
cool.
Bruce said you don't have the guts to call her that, and I said just watch me, okay?
Yeah, well,
Calling
yeah.
her KTR.
Yeah.
I love it. I
All
love
right.
it. And I do have people say KTR.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us inside the War
you.
Room.
I'm glad to be here. It's my first visit
Yes.
inside the
Wow.
War Room,
Yeah.
I should point out.
That's right.
You're the reason I wore lashes today.
And Gaydos wore
And they
hard
look
shorts.
great.
I wanted to look good for a KTR because, it's kind of impressive.
Let's dig into some of the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah.
We have our own Mesa mayor there. He's a Republican. John Giles is a Republican, and he's speaking at the DNC. It's pretty interesting. He's telling people, listen, if you're a Republican like me, maybe you're a moderate, maybe you don't like MAGA, you're not on the same page, vote Kamala. So I'll start with Karrin Taylor Robson. What do you make of a guy like this? Is he a turncoat? Is he a guy like, do you know him? What do you think of when a Republican basically changes teams and says, don't vote for the guy that's on my team? What do you make of that?
Well, I do know Mayor Giles. I've worked with him on my day job as a land use consultant, recovering lawyer. So I've worked with him in that context, and I say it's a free country. He could go do what he wants. I do question, however, that I think this is the third cycle he's been out endorsing Democrats.
Okay.
So at some point, maybe he should do what others have done and switch parties.
Well, and because, one of my questions was, and this is for everybody, is he's not the only one. I know there's some other, I don't know how high profile Republicans who are speaking at the DNC. What's in it for them? Because I got to believe if you call yourself a Republican and you speak at the DNC, you're not getting invited to the Christmas parties anymore. You're done. You're persona non grata. So what's in it for you?
Bloomberg did. He was he was very high profile. He was the mayor of New York, and he spoke at the convention 4 years ago.
Okay.
Well, there's Arizona yesterday actually had two Republicans who spoke at the Democratic National Convention. Mayor Giles was one, but Stephanie Grissom, who's from Arizona, she was here and a
Communications director?
Yeah, but she was she was the press secretary for Trump when he was president.
For a very brief time.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think she ever had a press conference.
She's the first press secretary in the history of the White House who never had a press conference.
Right.
But
There's something for your biography, right?
But before and after that, she served as Melania Trump's chief of staff, and so she was in the know there for quite a while. But I guess the question is, and look, my dislike of Donald Trump because he tried to overthrow the government and had attempted a coup is somewhat well known.
Other than that,
I'm always surprised that more Republicans don't stand up and say, look, I'm a Republican. I like a lot of these policies, but this is not the guy. This isn't the guy. And that's the part that surprises me more, that people look at Giles and other people and say, I can't believe they're doing this. They're not really Republicans. Why aren't we looking at other people who are real Republicans and real conservatives and saying Donald Trump is not a real conservative? He's not a real Republican.
Mitt Romney is a Republican who hasn't been a fan of Trump for quite some time. And so, I mean, the thing is there are some out there, but you have to remember, Mitt was in a safe state. It was easy for him
Utah,
to be.
yeah.
You have to say what's easy for you, because if you want to get reelected and actually make a difference, then, people know what happens when you don't toe the line with Trump. And the sad news is that, remember, at the beginning of the election when Trump was running and in the debates, everybody was piling on to him. Nobody liked him. I mean, people have basically had their videos of them saying how bad he is used against them while they were running for office. But as you know, you got to bend the knee for this guy in order to get reelected because of the people in the primary. You can get primaried.
That's Gale Bass. We've got Barry Markson. We've got Karrin Taylor Robson. From what Barry said, why do you go with Trump? He's got, I think he's got issues that you see that you don't like. Certainly some of the ways that he goes out and campaigns, but you still endorsed him. So what is it about him that you like, and can you ignore the part that Barry can't ignore?
Well, at the end of the day, for me, it's about policy. right? And I think Republican policy and Democrat policy, in particular today, are very, very different. You know, do I want big government, more taxes, more regulation, open borders, chaos in the streets? Or do I want limited government? Do I want a safe and secure border? And so for me, I take personalities out of it. That's what I did, and that's what makes my decision for me.
But where is the chaos in the streets, really? Like, where?
How about Chicago?
That's
We'll start with Chicago.
But let's
start
look
with
at
San Francisco.
But let's look at the fact, like, and that's if I might borrow a line from Bruce. If you look at crime statistics, crime is down. Most people who are killed by people they know. They're not killed by gangbangers in Chicago. So the question is local policing. I don't think that's a national policy. I think people who are astute at this know that when you have a community like that, clearly the community needs a change about how they're policed. But I don't think people are not going anywhere because they fear of chaos in the streets. That's something that I hear Republicans like to say, but most of my friends still go and do stuff at night. They go fill up their gas at night. They go wash their car at night. They do stuff at night because they're not afraid to go outside. They're just told they should be.
No, I know people who are afraid. In fact, I had a daughter living in Washington, D.C., and after, the second sound of gunshot I heard in her neighborhood, somebody was getting killed outside of her apartment in a place that's supposed to be safe. I'm like, you're coming home, right? So, we have a police crisis in this country because we have not properly supported our police. Kamala Harris, right? She wanted to defund police. She also wanted to abolish ICE. Right? She has a record that she needs to run on. And so, again, just going back to let's go back to the policies, right? Under Donald Trump, when he left office, we had a 2% inflation. That was the inflation rate at the time.
Well,
in July of this year,
but,
year-over-year inflation was 5.9%. So, okay, we might get a 2% or 0.2% decrease in inflation, and now the Democrats are saying, "Oh, inflation's coming down." From what?
That's Karrin Taylor Robson. Gale Bass is here. Barry, go ahead.
All right, so I wanted to ask this question. I'm glad you're here, Karrin, and I know you can. I know you can handle it. You can handle any question. and your point is well taken. That the policies are different. There's different policies. There's a difference between Republicans.
I will
and
point out
Democrats.
Trump wanted to defund the FBI and federal law enforcement. I would argue he wants to defund the police as well.
As they were going after him, yes.
And I'd argue about the Republicans wanting smaller government when Trump had more debt piled up than any other president combined through the rest of history. But the question I always have for everybody is, how do we get past a president who tried to stay in office despite losing the election? And that's not a question anymore. That's a fact. There was a scheme, there was a coup involved for him to stay in power despite losing the election. And to me, that's the whole ball of wax. We can disagree about policy. I love disagreeing with people about policy. I respect it. We have a drink. We sit down. It's great. But that's the whole country. That's the whole thing that makes the United States different, is we don't do that. We have a peaceful transition of power. We've done it for 250 years. The first time it didn't happen was 2020. How do we get past that?
We look ahead and not back. The media wants to camp on 2020. I have always said we need to look forward.
I would look forward if it wasn't the same guy running. If it was any of those other Republicans in the primary who were the nominee now, we'd be looking forward.
And who keeps saying the election was rigged? I mean,
right. He said it again. He said it again today.
Okay.
Today he said it.
I've never said that. I've never said
I
the
appreciate
election
that.
was stolen. I've never said that. I was the only one in my primary campaign that never said it.
Right.
However, and you know this, Barry, I've been around the United States Air Force for over 20 years as a civilian leader. And I'm no military expert, but I do know if you stay on the battlefield from yesterday, if you don't, and you've lost, if you don't get off that battlefield, you're dead. You got to look forward, right? You have to look forward. You have to provide a vision for the future. And that's what I've always done. That's what I want to do. And now we're faced with a binary choice. We have 2 items on the menu, right? Pick one.
Yeah.
Pick one.
I hear you.
And I'm not going to pick Kamala Harris because I don't like progressive big government.
We still have
she
RFK.
She was the most progressive member of the United States Senate when she was there.
We still got RFK Jr. until Friday.
Until Friday.
Can I ask a question?
No,
because
go
you know what? There are some Republican women I really admire.
Okay.
Karrin is one of them. KTR is one of them. I keep
KTR.
wanting to call her KTAR.
Yeah.
But you're one of them. There was also Betsy Bayless and Christine Jones. I think I met Christine a couple of times, and Why is it that we can't elect them?
Because this is how we vote. We all know
how
that,
come
right?
they can't get through the primary? Because the people
Republican
representing
primaries.
your party are not women like that, who I've known, who I've seen in the news, who have won elections in the past, or Christine's a lawyer. But the thing is like these are capable, strong women. And I'm saying this as a UC Berkeley grad.
Yeah.
So I know they could get the job done. But why doesn't the party support more people like that in primaries? Because people consistently get primaried and then Republicans lose. And in places they should be safe.
Well, both parties, the Republicans don't have a monopoly on electing people that can't get through a general election. So it's in both parties, and it's a challenge to be sure. But from my perspective, you have to work harder. You've got to, hope you can appeal and to a broad variety of voters, and then you hope that your voters show up at the polls. So I don't have a perfect answer for you, but I can tell you for me personally, I'm going to keep at it. Whatever that may be, I'm not going anywhere.
You heard it here first, y'all.
As you may or may not know, I got censored by the Republican Party, but I'm still here. And I'm going to continue to advocate for what I believe is right from a conservative position.
And by the way, there's going to be something on the ballot. Karrin won't like this, but there's going to be something on the ballot this November that's going to help, theoretically, will help not have the extreme people on left and right.
Well, you say it won't help her. I think it would absolutely help her.
I think it would help her, but she's not allowed to say she likes it because the parties don't like it.
Yeah.
So but that would be, if we do that where we have open primaries,
right,
the top two vote getters are in the primary, and now you could have two Republicans running in a general election, or two Democrats, and now everybody gets to vote for them.
Well, it goes back to what a lot of people say. If you had made it past Kari Lake in 2022, I think the majority of us here would say you would have won that election.
Yeah.
So
Well,
maybe
all of our polls would agree with that.
Okay, that leads me to my next question. You don't like Kari Lake, do you? You just you don't like her very much, right? I mean, you endorsed her. I don't get it. She was very nasty to you. She was very mean. Why did you endorse her?
For all of us gathered here today and all of the listeners, Ruben Gallego wasn't very nice to me either. Right? I got attacked from the left. I got attacked from the right. In fact, Ruben Gallego was the lead attack dog of the Democrats against me, and it was part of a $50 million nationwide campaign to go after candidates that would have been the stronger candidates in the general election, and it worked. It worked. And so I took incoming missiles from both. So I go back to what I said earlier. For me, at this point, we have a binary choice. What's the policy? What policy do I agree with more? Do I want big government? Do I want, Ruben Gallego was a member of the Progressive Caucus his entire career in Congress until he decided to run for the Senate.
But why not just say, okay, I don't like either of these two. I'm not going to endorse one.
Well, I'll tell you, I had both Kari Lake and Mark Lamb come and seek my endorsement in the primary, and I told both of them that I was going to stay out of the primary, but I'd support whoever won. My focus, and I told them this, and it continues to be my focus, is the Arizona State Legislature, and trying to do everything I can to protect the majorities, the one-vote majority we have in the House and the Senate, and so that's what I've been focused on.
She's Karrin Taylor Robson, and hearing a little bit about that, and I believe you, like full stop. So there's not a but after this. My concern,
my concern,
and I think I said this off the air, so I have to do it. We think you would have made a great governor for the state of Arizona. Full stop.
Thank you.
I got no argument with that. I won't vote for the MAGA side ever. No conceive. I'd vote for a warm jar of pickle juice before I vote for any of them. I'm worried that you start heading in that direction to win a Republican primary, and you're going to make me say, Karrin, I thought we were friends. I thought you were a normal person. I thought you were decent and honest, and please don't go down that route.
Well, I'll tell you, I just said it.
That's
I was
a plea
censored.
from a constituent right there.
I'm a censored Republican, right?
Yeah.
Because I am who I am. I'll support who I want to support, but at the end of the day, it comes back to policy. And Washington, if we want to camp on the U.S. Senate race, Washington, it's either going to be a Republican-controlled Senate or a Democrat-controlled Senate. and whatever the senator is, whoever it is from Arizona, will follow their Democrat leader or their Republican leader. Right?
What about the smaller races like, Wendy Rogers? Are you gonna support her or a Mark Fincham who's also running? Because I know that you're supporting Republicans, but are you supporting all Republicans like these two?
Well, I started a PAC over a year ago, the Arizona PAC, and unlike some of the other PACs, we played in primaries. And one of the primaries that we spent a lot of money in was District 1 to support Ken Bennett over Mark Fincham. So that should answer that question.
Okay.
And I like Ken Bennett, and I call him Ben Kennett, and he knows that, and I poke fun at him, and I think it's kind of funny. Barry doesn't. He always tells me don't do that, but I think it's funny.
Yeah. Well, you can't make fun of the president for doing it and then do it yourself.
I make fun of everybody, Gail. You know that.
That is true.
All right, so we are in the war room. We want to talk about a couple different things, right?
Yeah.
Kamala Harris. When is she going to talk policy? This is what we're going to talk about in just a second. You can't just go on vibe, right?
It's working.
You say you can't.
It will not work if she continues to ignore what her policies are. And Karrin Robson, you've told us you're more policy than how it's
personality.
Right. So we've got the Democratic National Convention taking place right now. Are we just going to go on vibe? And Lil Jon was there, and it was all fun.
That's pretty cool.
And I agree, it was cool.
It was very musical.
Is that really going to get you elected president? Is a cool what did they do? The roll call? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Like
roll call the
hip,
states.
a cool hip roll call is going to win her the presidency.
Did you see the thing that they made a video of comparing that they did the Republican one and the Democrat, and they kept going back and forth?
Yeah.
And the Republican one was an older Southern woman speaking very slowly, and then they flip over to Lil
This was a
John
party.
coming out.
Right.
It was
okay.
It was
From
pretty
the great
interesting.
Well, they want to motivate young people.
That being said, when are we going to get? So, are we just going to go on vibe, or are we going to get some sort of a policy from Kamala Harris? I understand she's been busy. She just took over the race from Biden. When are we going to hear, what do you think of the economy? What do you want to do on immigration? Where is all this?
I think you're going to get that, and you're starting to see some of it now. But let's give them some credit. What happened here was crazy, right? I mean, we've never seen this before. A president who is running for your election says at the last minute, I'm not doing it.
Okay.
She has to step in. The fact that they've handled it as well as they have, that they consolidated the Democrats and got all the support immediately.
No floor fight.
And then goes out and starts doing all these speeches where people are showing up. I mean, she's like the anti-Biden. I mean, the level of excitement is so different than it was 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. It's amazing.
But nobody knows where she stands on anything.
But it doesn't seem to matter. Right now, it's just, thank goodness it's not Biden. That's the biggest thing.
That's certainly the wave she's riding.
And there's so many people who just don't want, forget the policies, they're exhausted by Trump. And I think that's a lot of people. They're just looking for an alternative. And when they looked at Biden, they said, "My goodness, I can't. That's not an alternative."
And they want a happy.
Now,
there's something that they were talking about. Was it at the Washington Post or the New York Times? They were saying they're the happy warriors, her and Tim Walz. And
what does that mean?
It's injecting excitement in politics that we haven't seen in quite some time. It's like since the early Obama years when
But I don't
Obama
know the
came onto the
politics.
scene. You know what the Democratic Party stands on. You guys are saying, "What's the policy?"
We know what it is.
Yes,
we know. That's why they don't want to talk about it.
You know what the Republicans stand for. You know what Democrats stand for.
They don't want to talk about it because it's not a winning policy. Their policy is what got us where we are today. Chaos at the border, inflation. The inflation rate now is double what it has been in the last four administrations.
Not now. It's 2.9% now.
Well,
it
the
is.
average year of year was 5.9%.
But
let's not talk about. Well,
let's not talk about that because
no. You didn't talk about how Trump inherited a very good economy from Obama. He inherited a good economy. The economy wasn't taking when he took over.
I'm sorry, that 2019 economy was awesome. You want to go back to 2019?
Yeah, I'm the crazy one in the room. I don't give presidents credit nor blame for the price of gas, the Dow Jones Industrial, because I understand how a global economy works.
But what Karrin's saying is right. Kamala Harris she's a liberal. She's
absolutely
a liberal.
Radical liberal.
She's not a communist. And I have to say, when people
Karrin, is she a communist?
Well, some of her policies, she was the most radical member of the United States Senate. and her voting record. She was farther left than Bernie Sanders, if that's possible.
But are people allowed to change their positions
Yes,
on things?
they are.
Let's use
They are,
Kurt-
but
Kurt-
if she has, then she needs to tell us.
Well,
We could talk about Project 2025. You want to talk about radical. You want to talk about out there. I mean, young people are getting a hold of that. And the Republican Party, I mean, you have people in the Republican Party who are vowing, we're going to put people in place so they won't certify the election. Young people are going to think, that's radical. You're the party of the Constitution, and this is what you're talking about. So I think when we're throwing, you're radical, the fact of the matter is people know what the Democrats stand for. They know what true constitutional conservatives stand for, and you just have to rely on which party am I going to go with, which one. Like Karrin Taylor Robson, she is not going to deny that she lost the election, or somebody who says I'm going to fight and waste millions of taxpayer money to recount and find out that Biden had more votes than we thought he had.
I was amazed in the primary that Carrie Lake and Abe Hamadeh, neither one of them said that the election was rigged when they won.
Yeah,
It's
amazing
shocking.
how that worked.
So, but I will say this, Gaydos, you're making fun of the vibes, but I have to tell you, Trump is so negative. Even now, forget about the policies for a second. Just listen to him talk for 5 minutes. It's depressing. He says we're a third world country.
Yeah.
He says we're in steep decline. He says the entire world is going to end if he doesn't win this election.
I don't know if he said that, but
negative thing. I'll find the clip.
Right.
It's one negative thing after another, and there's nothing positive. Where's the Reaganism? Where's the the shiny?
And I think,
not him.
but along
That's
the
not
line,
who he
I
is.
think that's the act is wearing thin. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a
It's
rerun
exhausting.
of the last 9 years, and I see plenty of people like, I've had enough of it. I get it. Here's the crazy name I'm going to call him. Here's the
why don't we do that? I think that's where we should go next.
okay.
Is the act wearing thin from Donald Trump? He's going to be here on Friday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. He'll call people names. He'll,
All right,
talk about the election being stolen.
Okay.
The
But he's
greatest
done
hits.
that for years. And
I
okay, so
agree.
if he continues to do it, does that lose him the election? Does that lose? Why don't we?
Okay.
Why don't we? Just,
I don't see
Okay,
how it
wait,
brings one new person.
But Donald Trump doesn't have a monopoly on calling people names. I mean, I remember when Kamala Harris called Joe Biden a racist, right? And yet she ended up on his ticket,
the debate stage.
right? On the debate stage. And so that's kind of politics. I think the question you're asking.
Let's not say that what Trump
When
does
you're
is
a person
normal.
of color and when you're a person of color and you hear people in the other political party say things that you know is code or dog whistles, I'm sorry, people are not going to cross the line because of that. And you say, well, they've called names. When you're calling somebody a racist, you're calling somebody a racist because you have a deeply held belief that they've said something that's offensive to you and that's inappropriate. Calling somebody a racist is different than calling them a radical. I just wanted to point that out.
All right, let's talk about the Trump Act. And again, he'll be here Friday. So will RFK. Speaking just before him, I don't know. Not at the same place,
No.
I'm led to
Well,
believe.
not yet.
But it might be close enough to drive over. I don't know exactly how that's going to work.
Where's the worm telling him to go?
Yeah, we're going to do. Yeah, there is that.
Oh man.
Just as long as he doesn't bring dead bears with him, I think we're going to be good. I think we're going to be fine.
It was me. I was.
And all I want to do is talk about policy.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we
And
want to
we've
talk
got-
about bears.
We've got the war room going on. So we kind of set it up before the break. When we look at whether it's polling numbers, whether you look at the quote unquote enthusiasm going on right now with Kamala Harris, maybe compared to Trump's campaign, is Trump's act getting old? Is he doing anything new today that he hasn't done over the last 9 to 10 years? And has it just worn thin with people? I know the people who are going to go to his rally on Friday, it hasn't worn thin with them. But are they going to hear something new, or are they going to hear the greatest hits? Do you know what I mean? Is it like Van Halen on tour? Like, God, dude, jump! I don't want to hear the new stuff.
It's like Henny Youngman doing the same stuff, and he's 78. I think it's wearing thin. And look, I'm not a fan, so obviously I'm going to come with that bias. But it's just the same thing. I'm amazed that he hasn't been able to have some optimism, some positive discussion instead of being so negative all the time. I do think it's exhausting. I think people are getting tired of it. It's wearing thin. And I'm just surprised he can't switch, but maybe that's just who he is. That is his, you're saying that's his act. I think that's who he is.
It's not an act, in other words.
Exactly. And it's interesting because if you talk about Trump before he ran for president, people would say he's such a nice guy. He's charismatic. He looks, people would meet him and be like, wow, that was so great. He was a different person. And I think politics can change you, right? When you feel like you're being attacked every day for 10 years, I guess I get that. But that's the difference now. Is it's so positive from the other side. We'll see if that can carry through. But Trump can't seem to kind of change his.
Well,
his
it was
act, if you wanna call
new
it.
8 or 9 years ago. It ain't new anymore.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about the first debate, which was maybe the most entertaining thing I've ever seen in my life. When he just
The first debate this cycle?
No,
or
when Trump
in
when,
20.
Yeah,
Little Marco.
2015.
Little Marco,
2015,
right.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so when we saw the show for the first time, I call it the show, 2015, Little Marco. How funny was that? You're low energy. And I'm watching this, I'm like, and I said this on the air, by the way, the next day, he's going to win the whole thing.
Wow.
He's going to win the whole thing. And he did. And people thought I was crazy.
So it's your fault.
It's not my fault. But Karrin, do you think that his act is just like, okay, is Kamala black? I mean, do we really have to go there, right? Now he's kind of saying she's a foreigner.
Where is she from?
What are we
Do we know
doing?
where she's from? Yeah.
Like you support Trump. That's got to drive you crazy, though, right?
Well, to answer your question, I'll answer your question the day after the election.
Yeah. Okay, jeez.
Right?
Way to defer.
But-
Hey, that was a segue.
Well, when you look at the fact that 2/3 of Americans say the country is on the wrong track, right? If that's really true, and people are tired of paying more for their groceries and tired of paying more at the gas pump for their gas. I mean, when Trump was in office, gas was what, $1.80? It's now $3.50 a gallon.
And we're
That
the largest
hurts.
oil-producing country on the planet.
Yeah,
produce
we
more
had
oil than
energy
We are
independence.
we are the largest oil-producing country on the planet, and it's more than any country has ever produced right this second.
Then our gas should be a lot less.
It doesn't work like that, which is why I don't give presidents credit
know
or
you
blame
don't.
for
I
it.
know you don't.
Bruce
It
is
doesn't
correct.
work like that.
I hate to say this, but Bruce is right.
No, I get it. I
don't
get
say
it. But
it.
if we're energy independent, and we're getting our own oil, our gas prices should go down.
No,
shouldn't
it shouldn't.
Why not?
Why would it? If you
It-
struck oil in your backyard, would you sell it for less than you could sell it anywhere else just because you found it? No.
It's the market.
It's
Supply
a
and demand.
global- it's a
Supply
globally
and demand.
traded
And if-
product.
And I would much rather be dependent on ourselves for our energy than foreign adversaries.
I agree
Saudi
with you.
Arabia.
I agree with you on that
And-
one.
Iran.
honey.
Listen,
And-
it's
and-
only
and-
because it's yours is balanced budget, and I love it. Mine's oil and gas production. We import 15% and we export 15%, and we do it not only because it's a free market, but also because we have different grades of crude, and we have refineries that can do some, and we don't have refineries do other. We send it in other places. It is a free market.
Well,
and
one of the
price
reasons
oil-
that
and-
gas prices go up is because California's refineries keep breaking, and then we get our gasoline
And we
from there.
can't get new refineries permitted.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
That's a good point.
But again, oil and gas companies are for profit. Chevron ain't going to sell it for less. I
Like
hate
the
to break
most
it to you.
profitable companies are them.
I am hearing consensus though. We all hate California. So
No,
that
I do
We
not hate
agree.
California. That's my home state, and I do not hate it. And I see the bumper stickers. Don't California my Arizona. It was like, well, don't Arizona my Arizona. When you see things out there that can be improved, and we don't do them. Like, why don't we have more solar? Why isn't there more solar in Arizona? Because we know if we want to be energy dependent, if we want to make sure, because people are worried about climate change and that crosses party lines. Why aren't there solar panels over those parking places?
I've
and
never
stuff?
understood why we aren't the solar capital
I
of the
don't
planet.
understand that at
Honestly.
all.
I'd love to talk about this for an hour because we could produce a whole bunch more solar, but we don't have a power line or power grid to put it on, and we
Interesting.
can't get
Well,
more
if you get
transmission
elected, would you?
permitted.
If you won election, if you were governor, would you work toward that?
I would absolutely, but the problem is the federal permitting process.
Got it.
The NEPA process. You can't get transmission lines permitted inside 5 or 6, 7 years,
Interesting.
if at all.
Interesting.
Less red tape. I'm for that.
That's the
Absolutely.
war room.
Yeah. Great job.
it. All right.
Nice job, guys. Here
All
we
right.
go.
Really appreciate it. Karrin Taylor Robson, Gale Bass, Barry Markson, the best and the brightest joining us on this edition of The Worm. We'll do another one next Wednesday, 5 o'clock.
Thank you
All
guys
right?
for joining us.
I sincerely hope all of you would accept an invitation if we ask you to come back someday,
I'd love to come back and talk about the balanced budget. again.
Yes! I love that
There you go.
idea.
And I'd love to come back and talk about oil and gas.
Here we go.
And the green transition.
I want to talk about eminent domain.
Barry,
feel strongly
what do you
about
want to
that.
add? Hurry up.
I want to talk about how the Suns are messing everything up.
There
How
is
about
that. All right.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gaydos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.